first Halloween special. We have another one coming up later. Horror, game, monsters, and killers. We're here to draft to see who has the best tastes in the scariest tastes. I am your host, the Pixel Doctor. And Yeti forgot words.
I am the Mini Yeti. I am the Yeti VTuber. I stream a variety of games, ironically being horror being one of them. Primarily shooters, indie games, and such like that.
I am Mordred Cannon, a Kitsune streamer soon to be a VTuber. I also play a variety of games like action and shooters.
I am Burb, the horror owl, spooks and all. I'm a resident Dead by Daylight addict, the Smash Bros of horror.
Doesn't go who, he goes boo.
And I'm Fexic. I am not really a YouTuber or a VTuber, I'm kind of just here to be here.
You're here by association.
Exactly. Although, I might eventually have a channel, like, later, next year probably. I don't know, we'll see how it goes.
At the very least, we gotta get you a character icon for these videos.
For real.
We are doing horror, game, monsters, and killers. We got everyone here who has got a good taste of spooks and scares. Horror is pretty subjective, so we'll see. I don't get scared by video games that often, so none of these characters may scare me, but we'll see. We'll see. Give me good arguments. Anyway, I gotta do this because YouTube says I got to. If you like the video, like, share, comment, subscribe, and all that, and then leave suggestions of any topics you would like to see. I will be taking those down. Of course, if we're doing specific holiday stuff like this, I will override. But if you have any suggestions or anything, just let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like in the comments to vote, and just voice your opinions out loud of what you would have drafted in this list. But for now, Yeti, would you like to start us off? Too bad, you're going to do it anyway.
Absolutely. Fuck you. Absolutely. I would love to do that. For my first pick, I'm going to choose the one, the only, the Beast from Amnesia the Bunker.
Yeah, that's creepy.
So, from Amnesia the Bunker, the Beast is a very interesting antagonist in the game. So, when you normally play a horror game, there's usually a build-up to the game. There's usually, oh hey, here's what the monster looks like. There's usually, you see it doing some things. Usually there's like build-ups where there's like, you go through bits, you do puzzles, and then the monster is there again. That's the normal flow of Amnesia titles. However, Amnesia the Bunker decided to do something very, very different. So, in Amnesia the Bunker, you have to deal with this entity known as the Beast. That is how it's presented to you in the game. The Beast is very different from the normal flow of Amnesia games in the way of he's active all the time. The only thing that seems to make him attack you less is if the lights are on, which, by the way, the lights are powered by a generator, which you have to go out and find fuel to find. And if you don't find the fuel, then the lights go out and he becomes a lot more active. The goal of the game is to escape a bunker that you've been trapped in because your commanding officers have sealed off the entrance. So you have to go through this entire bunker while he is after you. And he is relentless. So one of my favorite parts about the Beast in Amnesia the Bunker, this game gives you access to firearms and explosives, none of which actually hurt him. All they do is either annoy him or slow him down a little bit. Oh yeah, and the fun part, the more you use explosives and guns on him, the more resistant to them he becomes.
Some people say that adding weapons in games makes the game less scary, but giving a weapon and then having that weapon do nothing virtually, I think is even scarier.
Agreed.
Yeah, which is what makes the Beast from Amnesia the Bunker probably one of my favorite picks.
Not a bad story. It's definitely disgusting, I'll say that.
It's got some nice animations I've seen.
I have not. I've only seen the original Amnesia, so I thought you were talking about that at first before I saw the picture. But this thing is way uglier. Disgusting. I don't want to look at it anymore. Move on.
For my first pick, I've gotta go with one of the goats of horror back on PS2. Pyramid Head.
Yep, I figured he was going to be somebody draft 1 or round 1 pick.
I have some small issues with this one, but I'll wait for Mordred to explain why she loves this dude first.
Growing up, Silent Hill 2 was one of my most played games, and when I wasn't playing it, I was watching my dad play through it. And every encounter with Pyramid Head just screamed danger. This guy is immune to bullets in almost every encounter, and can and will one-tap you in the first fight. And to make things worse, in the final encounter there's 2 of them. And seeing him make a return in Silent Hill Homecoming and the movies was a nostalgia rush.
I still want to watch those movies at some point. Like I said, I've heard they're bad, but I need to see them for myself to confirm that.
Like they're bad, but not bad.
That's pretty much what I'm getting out of it.
Only reason they're considered bad is they took the Resident Evil approach and rewrote the story.
Yeah, well, I'll see when I eventually watch those movies. My problem with Pyramid Head is I do not find him scary in the slightest. And even when you have to fight him, if you played Silent Hill 2, I can't speak for Homecoming, I haven't played it yet. But in Silent Hill 2, he's like he can one-tap you like Mordred said, but he's so slow that he really can't get you if you just run to the other side of the room, and in both like the fights you have to do with him. But story-wise, I love him because contextually he's actually very helpful to James. He's actively he may not seem like it, but he's actively helping James, who's the main character of the game.
Yeah, he is interesting. Again, I only know about this from DVD, but he's the embodiment of punishment. He is a punisher. He's a psychological creation. He's not a real thing, which is quite interesting and unique.
It's a mix of things because his design is a representation of the executioners of the town of Silent Hill back in like the 1800s, I think is what it was. So that's what he's based off of in the game. And then in game, he's basically James's subconscious. It's James punishing himself. That's essentially what Pyramid Head is. So that's why it's also kind of helping him in terms of the story.
In Homecoming, you only see him in a single cutscene and then an ending that's hard to get.
Yeah, which kind of makes it sound like he's just kind of thrown in there, but again, I haven't played it, so I can't say.
And cameos are neat. There's in DVD there's an effort in the lore to tie him to Cheryl Mason from Silent Hill 3, which has its own sort of lore.
Nostalgia is nostalgia.
Fair enough, but which is interesting since Carol Mason was tied to Silent Hill 1. Silent Hill 1 and 3 are tied together. 2 is kind of a standout, and 4 is also kind of a standout, so that's interesting at least. Interesting design. I just can't see him as scary. He's so slow.
Slow until he ditches the knife.
But let's move it on.
I choose the man himself. The man behind the slaughter, to be precise. Springtrap, the purple guy, William Afton.
Hi.
Oh, yeah, I had a feeling that something of this was going to pop up from you.
FNAF 3, the movie, the novel trilogy, I care for any of them. He's the murderer of so many innocent children. Regardless of his incarnation, he could be a mad scientist, he could be a more grounded killer in the games. But he's always been a fascinating character the more you dive into him. And in his FNAF 3 incarnation, he has an incredible design. Just peak. It's so good that every redesign since has been inferior. He has great voice acting from PJ Haywood in FNAF 6, The villain's so good that the franchise's new villain has been in his shadow since his final death. The entire lore of the Springtrap suits is graphic and implied gory details that really put some image of true gory detail into this horror franchise. He's so iconic that he's easily the most requested choice of a killer for the upcoming Dead by Daylight DLC next year. He has an interesting backstory in the games with Michael Afton, the protagonist of the games, his son, his youngest son, the Crying Child, and his daughter who goes on to possess Circus Baby. He has parallels and differences to his business rival Henry Emily, aka the Cassette Man in FNAF 6. There's just so much to Afton that he's just a perfect example of a horror villain to me.
I did. Springtrap was kind of my favorite. I wasn't really like, I never played the FNAF games, but when Game Theory was doing all their stuff, like I did really like Springtrap's design. He's probably my favorite, maybe second with one of the Foxies, because I do like the Foxy design.
Yeah, I like, I think there were a couple of, like, boot-up images for FNAF 3 where it actually shows Springtrap reaching up and holding his mouth open, and you can see Afton's mummified remains inside of his head.
Yeah, indeed, those rare boot screens. It's really interesting. You get to see, like, the actual body horror of the model.
Yeah, and just the nature of how Afton came to be trapped in the Springlock suit in the first place is extremely morbid, and I love it.
Well, he did it to himself, if I recall, right?
Yeah, he gets punished by the kid ghost, basically, and lured into the very suit that he killed them with, which is a cosmic sense of justice there.
That is called dramatic irony.
Yeah, those old suits, you had to turn the springs to part the endoskeleton so a person could get in, but if the springs got wet, they would come unwound.
That he was found in. Yep.
Yeah, and then the endoskeleton would snap shut, and if there was a human in the suit when the endoskeleton snapped shut, then GG no re, and that's exactly what happened to him.
And the franchises continue to evolve, and if you look into the newest game, Into the Pit, you actually get to hear the call, like audio of when Afton actually goes into suit. You hear him screaming out in agony.
Oh, I gotta listen to that.
Eventually I'll play these games when I get my hands on them.
Yeah, I personally am not a fan of jump scares, but Springtrap is one of those ones that actually gets creepier the longer you look at it.
I've gotten pretty resistant to them over the years now. Thank you, Fatal Frame.
I think people focus too much on the jump scares, and there's a lot of really interesting lore and character work in the FNAF franchise.
We'll leave it at that, because we're going to go on too long of a tangent otherwise. Which means, go. Me. Thanks, me. So, we got a few different options here. Real quick, how does the Beast move, Yeti? Is he pretty slow and lumbering, or is he very fast and, like, running at you?
That depends if the lights are on or off.
Alright, so he can do both depending on that variable. Well, in my case, we got another bit of a slow mover who kind of does something similar, I guess. He can also be very, very fast if he wants to be. I am going with the Deer Lord, also known as Specimen 8 from Spooky's Jumpscare Mansion.
Join us. Why do you go, child? For submission is inevitable. For flesh will sustain my children.
Nice.
Ooh, alright.
This one, for those that don't know, this is an indie game made about 10 years ago now. I got an HD update, which is really nice. That's the version I played. And you're going through 1,000 rooms in the manor, made by Spooky, little ghost girl. She's funny, who is just trying to kill you because she wants to. And there's all different types of specimens. There's a couple I love. I absolutely love. I will probably put at least one of them in the honorable mentions. But this guy, I think, is my favorite overall. Originally, he just kind of floated at you. He hovered towards you. At a very moderate speed, he could go through walls and stuff. He was pretty easy to get away to, but the whole time he would be speaking to you, saying, "Why do you run, child?" in this very distorted and creepy tone. As well as he'll have, if he's chasing you, he'll have, these little deer that'll spawn, and the deer can attack you. They got teeth. So he's also a minion mancer, but they updated him a couple years back, and now he doesn't just phase through walls. He gets a whole warp gate, and he speeds right through them. And he knows where you're at all times, so he's constantly coming towards you. So if he's chasing you, he's chasing you. You will not get away unless you get to a certain amount of floors away. And in this picture, you can see with his cape open, he has all these faces and souls. It doesn't show the animation for it, but usually the souls are moving stuff. And as he gets towards you, he opens the cloak so you can see all that. Usually he has it closed. So like as he's getting towards you, he's coming to give you a hug. He's coming to give you a hug.
Very wholesome.
Yes, he's very wholesome. And then when he kills you, he has a special. All of them have like a little like death animation thing, speaking to whatever they are. He brings you to a whole nother dimension where you walk down this forest area, and you go right to him, and you just accept that he's going to consume you. I just really like the fact that like normally when you have some sort of chase or anything, they're usually not that fast. But the warp gate just makes it so, like, no matter where you go, he's gonna be on top of you.
Yeah, that is pretty unnerving.
Alright, no one else to say anything. I guess it was a bad pick. Alright, first go, so I don't have to dwell on my sadness.
Right. So, it's actually funny you picked such a person to be your first pick, because mine, oddly similar. I'm going to put forward the Deer Haunter from Time Splitter's Future Perfect. Time Splitters, not a horror series per se, but it's still filled with enough creepy and unsettling shit that I feel it should be sometimes. And this is no more apparent than in the level Mansion of Madness in the third installment, Future Perfect. It takes place in a mansion in Connecticut in 1994, and the level starts on a bizarre note with the introduction of real zombies and real ghosts, a phenomenon that has even Anya, your science officer in your ear from the future, at a loss for what to do. The level proceeds to include a number of outlandish things like zombies, ghosts, a poltergeist, Tremor-style graboids, whatever the fuck Princess is, and the Deer Haunter. I personally find mounted animal heads unnerving already, and they throw one conspicuously into a room with a bunch of zombies that you're meant to kill to unlock the doors to escape. And right when you think the horde has run its course and you're free to leave, that mounted deer head on the wall begins writhing and wailing before bursting through the wall with a skinless humanoid body attached. The Deer Haunter then proceeds to charge you wildly, swinging hook-like hands until you put enough bullets into it to stop it for good. All the while, it leers down at you with completely whited out, lifeless, lidless eyes, which it retains even after it's killed. There are a lot of monsters in this game, and almost all of them are creepy and unsettling in their own way. This is especially true as you near the endgame. But this one has always stood out to me. Its appearance, presentation, and nature always put me on edge when I was playing through this level as a kid. Mounted hunting trophies were always creepy to me, and this game managed to weaponize one in a way that made me genuinely uncomfortable.
It's definitely creepy. It's more like, I don't know, bony. It's so thin. That's what I think is the creepy part about it.
Yeah, like the Deer Haunter is something that would not be out of place in a Junji Ito manga.
We're not getting much out of you guys today, apparently.
Tough crowd, yeah.
They are not for the deer.
I don't know a lot of these, to be honest.
You can still have input on what you think it looks like and stuff.
I do like it. It's just the way my screen is at the moment. I think it's really hard to see the image.
We'll move on to the next one then, since the image is being a bit of a bust for us. It'll look better when we get to when it's in the video, I promise.
Indeed. So I'm going to move on from something that definitively does have antlers to something that might surprise some of you, does not. I'm going to put forward the Wendigos from Until Dawn.
Nice.
So, real life, ever since my grandpa told me stories about it as a kid, this particular monster has always unnerved and unsettled me. And again, believe it or not, the Wendigos in popular media depicted with the antlers are an inaccurate and historically racist depiction. But the ones in Until Dawn are more physiologically accurate to the old native legends. The plot behind their appearance here is your standard affair with matters such as these. People come in, discover traces of tin and later radium under Blackwood Mountain, and a large mining operation ensues. The local natives advise that the land is cursed, and the mountain itself, home to a dangerous, or that the land is sacred, and the mountain itself, home to a dangerous curse not to be disturbed. And as is almost always the case, the warnings go ignored, and death and chaos follow. In this case, after the Wendigo spirit is released from the mountain by the miners, the curse overtook the area and began to plague those with misfortune that would set them up to succumb to the Wendigo's curse, namely by placing them in dire survival situations where they're forced to cannibalize others to stay alive. Doing so triggers the possession and eventually the grueling physical transformation into a Wendigo. And once transformed, there is no backspace, and no stopping the Wendigo shy of killing it, itself a rather difficult task. It becomes a gaunt, emaciated husk of its former human self, plagued by a hunger for human flesh that only grows more intense the more it eats. During the early stages of their transformation, their bodies sweat acid, tempering their skin to resist ballistic damage and lacerations. Fire, I think, is the only way shown in the game to burn away the hardened skin and make them vulnerable, with the only other way of putting them down for good being decapitation. And the scariest thing about the Wendigos is that Blackwood Mountain is a Pandora's box. Once that spirit is out, there's no putting it back in. It continues to possess and corrupt in the pursuit of death and chaos. Those with sense enough to heed the warnings and stay away may spare themselves, but as long as the drive to expand and develop at any cost plagues the human mind, there will always be those who trespass and trigger the curse anew. Or worse, risk awakening another Wendigo somewhere else.
Yeah, I always found these guys creepy. They're very long and thin, again, which is uncomfortable.
Yeah, and that's exactly how the old stories describe them, and this is the only, at least off the top of my head, the only media, like modern media, that actually depicts them that way. Like, everybody else decides to make them like these weird, like, gaunt deer things, and they're frankly not.
Well, the legend got mixed around, which is why I think when this game came out, there was a bunch of controversy surrounding the Wendigo and stuff. Not necessarily, I mean, kind of the game's fault just because it put Wendigos in there, but not really the game's fault.
Yeah, I mean, there are, admittedly, there are some tribes where they don't even say the thing's name because they think, like, just mentioning what it's called will invite a possession or a curse into you.
Well, then we're doomed.
I think it's also interesting to bring up their use revolving around the main family of the game. You haven't even mentioned, like, the actual plot storyline.
You're more interested in the monster, not the plot.
Yeah, I won't say, like, who, but they are integral to the main characters of the...
Yeah, I don't want to give spoilers, I just definitively do not want one of these things trying to, like, take a bite out of my shins.
Well, I think we spent enough time with these deer. Too much time, actually.
Farewell, dear friends.
I hate you.
Check out Until Dawn Remastered, coming soon.
On PC.
Finally. Literally, it was like one of the only PlayStation exclusives I wanted.
We're going to move on to the next thing, which is me, once again. And I'm going to go to a game that most people probably wouldn't think of as a horror game, but it's still a horror game. It's more action-based. That being said, we're going to Left 4 Dead. And I'm going to go with... There's a few good options here, but I think I'm going to go with the Smoker for some variety here. There we go. Disgusting. So it's considered a special infected in the world of Left 4 Dead. Didn't get introduced until the second game, I believe, if I remember correctly. And it is pretty frail. It basically is just a normal person, but it has, if you look at the image, it has a nice long tongue there, and it uses that tongue to grab you from very long range and basically choke you out. And depending on if it's high up on a building, it will also hang you. You cannot get out of it by yourself, that's how tight the grip is, and if you kill it, it blows up into a bit of smoke, making you choke even further. So even killing this thing, you're still going to take some damage and be a little stunned before you really get to do anything. I just think he may not be the scariest in design, but just the fact that he can get you out of range compared to everything else that has to get close. So he can be in the dark. You can't see him, and he's just gonna get you.
Yeah, on our gameplay level, I remember I haven't played like an excessive amount of Left 4 Dead, but from what I have, I remember just for being infuriating. If I was facing this thing, I'd be like, yeah, I'm dead. Goodbye.
Yeah, that is a horrifying visage.
God, I hate those things gameplay-wise.
Graphics-wise, the Left 4 Dead, they don't really show too much, but like actually look at them, they're very grotesque. So I wanted to choose something with a little bit of range. Like I said, I gotta build my team. Gotta build my team good. So gotta get that ranged guy. So I'm just gonna pass it along here.
Moving on to monsters, I got another monster for you all now.
What is it?
It's the real monster of Dead by Daylight. I bring you the Dredge.
Uh-huh. That is
Disgusting.
unsettling.
The Dredge, also known as the Druini, he's the real monster, a twisted creature. All light slowly drains in its presence, surrounding its victims with darkness. It can teleport into lockers and take its victim's place of hiding as its hunting ground. The lore is a manifestation of dark force of a once vibrant community, originating due to The Fold, a private American island group in the 1960s, by a group of anonymous philanthropists. Philanthropists, that's the word. Their goal to make a peaceful society free of dark thought and emotion, attracting the dismayed, disenchanted, and delusioned from across the country. This peace-living community thrived for years, with members following the dictates of its charismatic leader, Otto Stamper, who enforced a positive mindset way of life upon them. But not was all well within the fold, and Otto secretly banished people who confessed to having dark thoughts or spreading dark words. Those he appointed as guardians of the fold were quick to root out malcontents, banishing anyone who fought or spoke against the almost perfect community he had established. The utopian dream would crumble, however, as people began going missing. Fear spread, and people clung to good-thinking mantras to rid themselves of the formless creature that stalked them in shadow and consumed them. Otto attempted to blame others for the Dredge's arrival. Otto engaged a desperate measure, restricting a lockdown in homes, and made sleep forbidden. These effects did not stop the Dredge, however. Faith in Otto's ways shattered, and people turned on one another. The fold turned on others swiftly into violence until only Otto remained. Dredge then formed and looked upon Otto, possibly knowing his role in the formation of another killer of the realm, the Doctor, in the future. It spared the darkest man of all, and left in shadow. Later emerging to paranormal investigator Hattie Cower in the realm and the entity's recreation of the Garden of Joy, which the fold once called a home. Dredge consumed Maurice, the three-eyed horse belonging to another killer. Otto being a mentor of the Doctor in his own lore. Talbot Grimes, aka the Blight, another killer of the realm. During his own journey across the realm, he theorized that if enough people worshipped, feared, and thought about a being, it could be brought into existence as a god or a demigod. That's his lore, but there's more. His design is a merger of body parts of his victims, a formless void creature which is practically a god. He has great design, lore, and gameplay.
I say, I feel like I just took a college course here.
You're welcome.
I do like the theory behind that, though. Like, and that's like, doesn't that also play into like D&D, and to a lesser extent, like how Elder Scrolls like deism works? Like the
He is
more
only called the Dredge. He is an eldritch horror, through and through.
yeah, like the whole concept of like the more worshippers, reverers, or basically people thinking about it has, the more powerful a pseudo divine entity becomes.
In the DVD lore, he is basically considered kind of like the mini version of the entity itself, the multiversal god of the entire realm. He is like a miniature version of that, being that when he actually kills someone using his unique Mori animation, he actually absorbs the survivor into his body inside the black void. You just become a part of the Dredge.
Yeah, that's fucked up.
Yeah. I just think even like a sweet, innocent little three-eyed horse that even the entity took pity on, the Dredge just ate it. He did not care. He does not care for your emotion. If you're a good person, a bad person, he will devour you.
He is true neutral.
He is just a monster, a straight-up monster. It is terrifying. The Dredge skin that I posted there that's got the horse head, that's Maurice's head. He has a skin that is literally just his main victim in the lore.
What a dick.
Terrifying. He is terrifying, and I love him.
Those images are genuinely unsettling.
Yeah, he is just peak killer. Great killer. Okay, I will Pass on now.
For my second choice, I would like to draw your attention towards Subnautica, specifically one of the mods. Imagine going to the ecological dead zone and hearing essentially an ear-shattering roar and Hen you see it's a massive leviathan that's transparent like the ghost leviathans but larger. Present, the gargantuan leviathan.
Oh shit, that looks cool as hell. I love the colors.
Deep sea biology at its finest.
Oh, that is genuinely, yeah. Just no. Just none of that. None of that, please.
I think he's a cool dog. Good boy.
Oh, he's cool. He's cool, and I would love to see it. Just never in person. For no reason in person.
I think yellow dog's meant to be 3 eyes. That's cool.
If I can find it, there's a picture where you can see it in front, like looking at a person.
It's like if Perfect Chaos from Sonic Adventure lived in the Abyss layer.
So I couldn't find one of him looking at the person, but I found one of the one where he's looking at a Cyclops.
Oh yeah, no, that like the contrast of light does not make it. Ooh, that's unsettling.
Great design.
Yeah, like the contrast of light did not make that any better. Like it's still horrific.
It took me a bit to actually be able to see where it is, but it's so small compared to this thing.
Like, if I have to take a minute and try to find where the monster starts and where it ends, just fuck all of that.
In the lore of Subnautica, the first time you are introduced to the Gargantuan Leviathan in the base game, in the game it is extinct. You find its head in the Lost River, and you find its tail on the surface of the same skeleton.
Yeah,
Make it real.
Implying this thing was roughly, if I remember the size right, 300 meters in length.
Something like that. I remember looking into it when Mordred asked me about it.
When I first saw it on YouTuber Anthomnia's video, I was horrified. I hate deep bodies of water, and that makes me never want to swim in the ocean.
I don't like swimming in the ocean to begin with, but I agree.
Mood, I'm not going anywhere near that thing.
I am not biologically adapted to survive in the water.
Same, I'm a bird.
But this thing slurps ghost leviathans like their ramen.
Have you ever seen a snake eat another snake? It's like that.
For my second pick of the draft list, I have picked a legendary entity from a very, very small scale game. So small, in fact, you could consider it tiny. I am, of course, talking about the wolf spider from Grounded.
You know, I hadn't seen this game, or well, I'd seen it, but I'm surprised I picked up what you were going with. Not specifically the spider, but I knew you were going with Grounded.
So, one of the key factors of Grounded is they wanted to make a lot of the creatures move as realistically as possible. The spiders are no exception to this. They all move as if they were actual spiders, in the fact of he is incredibly persistent. So, in the game, imagine you're going around trying to... At the start of the game, you find out that you've been shrunk down and trying to find a way to get big again. You're going to this tree to go to a lab that you've discovered is at this tree, which is most players' first encounter with the mythical wolf spider. The reason why I didn't pick any of the other spiders in the game is because the wolf spider is the most prominent one that people consider a threat. In fact, in the early version of the game, they had to dumb down his AI because he was so persistent he would follow you even after you died and end up at your base. On top of the hilarious amount of damage he does, Grounded being an RPG-like horror game, I call it a horror game because being absolutely tiny, stuck in a garden full of things that want to eat you is terrifying.
Yeah, it's like some Honey, I Shrunk the Kids shit.
I think that's basically the inspiration for the game.
Dude, that scorpion in that movie gave me nightmares for a while after watching it.
I've not seen that movie yet, but I believe it. Wolf spiders are pretty relentless as a hunting species, so I appreciate that they got that accurate.
Yeah, if you're their prey, you're screwed no matter what you do. But funnily enough, wolf spiders are actually one of the most docile species to humans.
Listen, you know when you're the prey and when you're the predator.
On top of the fact that in this game, you can actually stumble upon them on accident.
That's even worse.
There are numerous areas in the game that have a lot of resources that are like little cave systems. And if you go into some of these cave systems, you might see a sleeping wolf spider. Sometimes you might run into them right when it's waking up. I did that before, it was not fun. I went into this cave, turned the corner to see him coming out of the cave. He sees me, I see him, I run, he catches me.
There is one nice little feature about this game I want to bring up. Jenny probably already knows by me saying that. But they made it because they knew people are so afraid of spiders. They made a slider so you can turn down like the details of the spider to the point where it could just become some orbs.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, they did it for the people that have arachnophobia because they still wanted the people to play the game. So it's just a nice little feature they added.
But unfortunately, the arachnophobia mode does make it harder for you to determine which spider is which.
And pros and cons.
You win some, you lose some.
I still appreciate the effort they put in.
Yeah, you also mentioned the way they move. I guess kind of just peek behind the veil here. Spiders are the only animal that I know of that don't have any muscles in their legs. They move them with hydraulic pressure, with their blood.
Also, I forgot to mention that the wolf spider doesn't make sound.
You did. Terrifying. I would not want to be hunted by that.
Not only are they about 4 times your size in the game, they make no sound and they hit really hard.
Yeah, fuck that.
Yeah, I think it was good. Move on to the next thing. I don't want to talk about this anymore. That's why I actually really like spiders.
Are you a big fan of Spider-Man by chance?
I actually am. I am.
For this one, I also choose a tale that takes place as a child. A few days before Christmas. This child was so excited to see what he had gotten as a present. He had opened his present early. And in this box, he found a little toy. This little toy was known as Tattletale. Tattletale is an interesting toy in the fact of it talks to you, you can feed it, you can play games with it. However, the thing about Tattletale is he is exactly what his name implies. He is a tattletale. Which brings me to my next monster. I introduced to you Mama from the Tattletale games.
Oh,
What the fuck?
That's creepy.
This is like a Furby. I don't like it.
Yeah. Ugh.
So in the game Tattletale, you are completing objectives for Tattletale to make him happy so that he stays quiet. If you do not complete these objectives for him, he will start making a lot of loud noise, which attracts Mama. And Tattletale, being a Tattletale, while you are holding him, will state the phrase, Mama is coming, which if you can find the audio file for that, that's great.
Mama hates you. Mama saw you. Mama's scary. Mama's coming. Mama's watching.
Because it's absolutely terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying when he says it, because then you're looking around to figure out where she is, so you can find out which way you need to go to escape her. A lot of the times she will approach you in the dark. The best way I can describe it is she doesn't like to approach you in the open. She will wait around corners. She will wait until there is no real easy way out. On top of that, your first real introduction to Mama is through a videotape you can find in the game. You put in this videotape and it's an ad for Tattletale. The tape goes normally at first, like displaying the products, then you notice that out of all the products, Mama is missing. Which Tattletale announces to you while the tape is going. He states, Mama is missing. Then the tape goes back to the people displaying the toys and you don't see them. which is weird. You don't see them or the toys. And then it cuts to the back room of Mama dragging a person behind a crate. Now, I'd like to remind you, Mama has killed full-grown adults, and you are playing as a child in this game.
How tall is Mama? Mama looks small. I can't tell, though.
Mama is roughly like 3 feet tall.
Oh, good. It's not even that big, and it's killing adults.
That's one hell of a Furby.
Chucky called and wants his job back.
Which, to anybody who has ever been interested in horror games, I would recommend playing Tattletale as a game. It is so good at being scary. By that I mean, Mama isn't apparently a threat until you fail an objective for Tattletale. Because that's when Tattletale starts making noise, which attracts Mama.
Well, even these images are horror fuel. Like, you just brought up a whole part of the 1990s that I wish just remained dead and dormant in the back of my brain.
Well, yeah, and the fact that she's based off of a Furby doesn't help.
No, not at all. Those things were demonic, and this looks demonic.
The eyes give me kind of Sonic.exe vibes.
Oh, yeah.
It's a Sonic.exe, Furby.exe.
Oh no. What have you done, Yeti? What have you done?
Also, I should mention that the first time in-game that you physically see her, you're in the basement.
Oh, fuck that.
Great. Like the one of two places in a house you don't want to be in.
As a Dead by Daylight player, I can confirm basement bad.
Oh, the first time you see her, she's in front of the exit to the basement.
Oh, good.
Which then prompts you to your first hiding instance, which... The game is all around terrifying.
We shall move on to the next one then. I think Kirby's unsettling the group here. It is the return of the Mordred.
So to go back to Amnesia,
Oh boy.
there were so many options from the basic monsters you can see. But I have to go with the biggest pain in the ass. The water monster, from Amnesia: The Dark Descent.
Oh,
I
God.
remember him.
Oh, no.
Does it have a form? I feel like it's invisible from what I remember.
I didn't make it that far into this game. The Gatherers unnerved me enough, though.
I think,
That's what makes it so fucking horrifying, Doc.
Wasn't the mermaid from Spooky's based off of it?
Yes, Spookies takes a lot of inspiration from other games and stuff. So, yes, a Specimen 13, I believe, the Siren is based off the water monster from Amnesia. There's also one based off Pyramid Head called Bad.
You cannot see it and have to rely on its splashes in the water to know where it is, and it's fucking fast.
Basically, don't go in the water.
Seeing a theme between this pick and the last one for, like, a very strong stay out of the water argument.
Too bad we can't have Jaws.
Thing every time I try to play the game.
Rightly so. But they made a Jaws game.
I know, but me and Peter had a whole argument about moving characters in games.
They have to originate in the video game.
Yes.
Well, then one of my picks skirts that line, but still meets the criteria.
It's hard. Me personally, I can't speak for anyone else, but if something is invisible, it's harder for me to be scared of it. Exactly, because I can't see it, but that's more of a me thing.
So, the scariest part about the water monster, I feel, is when you're getting in the water to try and get to the next platform, and you hear it closing in really fast behind you.
Oh, it's one of those, oh shit, he's like, oh shit, he's right behind me, isn't he?
It's like that primal fear of you know something is trying to get you.
Like, the closest thing I can kind of relate it to, like, something I've actually felt as a kid is, like, when you go to leave a basement.
Run up
like,
the stairs.
Yeah, like, when you're at the base of the basement stairs, you turn the light off, and you try to get to the top of those fucking stairs as quick as you can, because you don't know what's in that darkness, and you ain't about to stick around and find out.
Fastest person on the planet getting up those stairs. If you fall, it's game over.
Mm-hmm.
Fear of the Unknown is a Terrifier, to be fair. It's a very good horror.
Mhm.
Same with
Yep.
the water monster. You run out of boxes or you have to get in the water to go through a door. You better hope it's far enough away.
We do not partake in the water monster.
Do not want.
If you're not in the water, he won't get you at least.
Days like this, I'm glad I'm a bird.
We all gotta drink eventually.
Not from that water, not.
We shall continue on. We have more horrors to unveil. Oh shit, it's mine. No, it's Peter's. Whew.
Hello.
Oh, good, I wasn't ready.
Oh, good, because I've got a bit to talk about. So, we're gonna go from a water monster to a man who looks like he's made out of lava, but he's definitely not. We got another Dead by Daylight killer. He was referenced earlier, the Blight. True name, Talbot Grimes. To understand the human condition, one must rise above it. That was his personal motto on life, Talbot Grimes. He was a Scottish chemist who unrestrained ambition took him to towering heights. As a boy, he was a popular child. He was very bright, charismatic, and unafraid to challenge authority. What began as a child's curiosity nearly turned deadly after experimenting with a patch of poisonous foxglove. For days, he laid in bed, dripping with sweat, purging any food that touched his stomach. When he recovered, it wasn't fear that gripped him. No, it was fascination. There was something magical in how a single flower could drastically affect him. Into his adult years, his ambition quickly developed his questionable methods. He attended the London School of Medicine and excelled despite several reprimands. His willingness to push limits secured him a position in the British East India Company, and within 7 years, he was made the head chemist. In time, he completed one of his greatest achievements, a chemical which could increase a worker's productivity, which reduced their need for rest. He was rewarded with a secret laboratory underneath a prison camp on Dyer Island. There, off the coast of East India, prisoners of the Opium War became his unwilling subjects, led into drugs that allowed soldiers to withstand incredible amounts of pain. Though most side effects were minor, there were rumors that a small number of soldiers went mad. In feral states, they massacred villages, impaling the populace on bayonets, leaving them hanging from trees. There were no official reports of the subject, and Talbot refused to blame what could only be exaggerated war stories. Though his callous brilliance seemed unflapped, he was ignorant to his enemies, his questionable work at his mast. The realization quickly struck him, a steel pipe to the back of the head, during a trip to Mangalore. He was bound and loaded into a wagon. When his blindfold was removed, a sickly man shoveled him into a mass grave filled with hundreds of bodies. Unbeknown to Talbot, his productivity-increasing drug had killed nearly an entire factory worth of workers. He knew he couldn't defend the anger and the accusations of his abductor. All he could do was curl up as a blow for the steel pipe rained down. His body was thrown into the grave and he was left for dead. Shifting between consciousness and unconsciousness, black thighs feasted upon his uncovered skin. The sensation of 100 pins stabbed into him. As he collapsed face to face with a dead woman dazzling his hazel eyes, too weak to pull away, he could do nothing but witness his life's work. Then, from the edge of death, he was brought back. He found himself on a small bed as a kindly wrinkled face looked upon him. He was nursed back to health by a mysterious monastery school. The monks studied forbidden text, striving to expand the human mind as a search for other dimensions, believing one to be connected to the other. This group, known as the Black Veil, who secretly worshipped the entity, the multiversal god of the Dead by Daylight realm. Talbot Grimes proved indispensable to the cult. He helped them with his knowledge, but even they, who worshipped a god that they could not understand, saw the flaws in his ways, and slowly over time, their kind words became not so kind, whispers in the dark. They turned on him, and eventually he was stabbed again by a needle, betrayed again by the people of the cult. He was sent into a dark den, and became yet again in a comatose state, floating between conscious and unconscious. But in his last desperate rush for life, he remembered all his equations, and a little voice in his head, Jekyll and Hyde style, began slowly taking over his mind. He started thinking of the equations, how to breach this other realm. He needed to get to this other realm, so he did. He became so desperate in his quest that he literally stabs himself and starts carving out symbols And these symbols succeed. It brings him to the realm. He sees a field filled with magnificent lush orange flowers. The whisper voice beckons to him, urging him to enter the field and discover worlds and dimensions beyond human comprehension. For a moment, he felt that sense of wonder he had as a child. Talbot stepped in, and he found himself in the realm. But he explored the realm, every part of it, the void, the harshest and the most cruel part of the realm, and beyond. He survived, despite the entity not wanting him to. And then, from the ashes of Talbot, came the Blight, a killer that was addicted to the serum that he had witnessed inflict the innocents that he had cursed them with. The pustulous serum, it enhanced him, but it corrupted his mind. A junkie with immense power, he still experimented, taking some of the realm's greatest figures and enhancing them, blightening them. The Xenomorph, Albert Wesker, Nemesis, Pyramid Head, and more would become willing and unwilling test subjects for the corrupted scientists. Just how much of Talbot is left?
Definitely a haunting visage, especially that close-up of his face.
He looks like if he was the Scarecrow from Batman, but turned up.
Slight inspiration there, but
Yeah, like, he looks kind of like Scarecrow, but based on that description, it sounds like he behaves like Bane.
yeah, he is literally a drug addict, scientist, chemist. It's crazy how much.
Yeah, so this is it's like Scarecrow and Bane as combined and presented by Clarion the Witch Boy.
His actual gameplay, he actually stabs the needles into himself, though, even though he is heavily blighted himself, and he speeds along like... You wouldn't look at him from his little hunchback and his posture. He uses a cane as his weapon, but that's rude, because he is one of the fastest killers in the realm. He ping-pongs off objects like a crazy, drugged-up man.
He's insane. Don't do drugs, kids.
Yeah, for real.
The worst part is, there's like little hints in his lore of there was like a brilliant mind there. He could have changed the world if he was applied more morally, but his own morals and his own actions and his own dismissal of what he did turned him into fully Jekyll. It's really left up in the air how much Talbot is left.
Once again, don't do drugs, kids.
Yeah, he's a really messed up killer, but as I said in his lore, he's taken some of horror's best characters and made them stronger. That's the crazy thing about him. He could literally like lead up an army if he wanted to, if he had the mental intelligence still left. But now he's just another monster in the realm, running around, stabbing people with needles.
This definitely goes into like a bit of body horror.
Oh yeah, definitely body horror, but it's not like... Generally, you don't think of like horror's best killers as like drug addicts kind of thing, but here we are. He's a very unique take on the cast.
I have a unique take.
Go ahead.
I'm going to keep it simple. I was going through a bunch of the games while I'm sitting here trying to figure out what to do for my horror choices here. I was struggling a little bit, I won't lie. But I'm going to go with a newer game. It's been out for, I don't know, maybe a year now. I don't even think a year. Bit indie, bit co-op, bit spooky, but not so much because y'all are just having a good time in the game. But in reality, if any of these things were real, it'd be terrifying. Instead, though, we kind of got a goofy fellow with big scissors. This is the Barber from Lethal Company, aka the Clayman. For those of you that don't know, which may be all of you because he is fairly new, yes, he is a Clayman with scissors. But there's a few things you need to know about him. One, he's invisible most of the time. You cannot see him until he's right in your face. And yes, he uses the scissors to cut you in half.
He looks like if the Ao Oni opened his own barbershop.
Looks can be deceiving. He may look like a goof, but he insta-kills you. Like, if he gets in range, and again, you can't see him until he's in range, he's gonna get you. He does apparently have some sort of audio cues to let you know he's nearby. But from my understanding, it's a little hard to hear. That may be changed in future updates, I can't say. So, you don't really know he's near until you see him, and if you see him, then you gotta be mindful that he's right there. If you see him, he stops moving from what I've seen, but he also kind of like blinks in and out of existence, so he's kind of like a peanut, but he does keep moving a little bit. Or Weeping Angel, if you prefer. Like I said, you're welcome. Like I said, design-wise, he may not be scary, but the fact that he looks goofy, you may underestimate him, and then when you least suspect it, bam, your spine is snapped in half, as well as everything else about you being cut clean in half.
Why does he remind me of the guy from Clock Tower?
Probably some inspiration there, but I find him a little scarier than Scissorman, because Scissorman is just so slow, and he just walks at you with hedge clippers. These are like child scissors. It's like safety scissors almost.
I honest to God expected him to say Scissor Man.
Like I said, I just don't think Scissorman is too scary, but then again, I don't find any of these things scary, realistically speaking. Like I said, looks can be deceiving, and the fact that he goes invisible until it's too late, I think it should be appreciated as an ability. Do not underestimate the underdogs. Apparently my hits are just a bunch of not hits.
Like you said, he's fairly new. I haven't seen him, and again, like just the shade of his body and just the goofy looking composition, just in my mind calls back to a monster from an old shit. I think, damn yeah, Aoni came out like 20 years ago now.
He's the Beetlejuice of killers. Not very scary, just kind of goofy.
Yeah, I'm in the boat of I've never heard of this before, but I mean, I kind of like the idea of scissors as a weapon, taking like a very like everyday object as a weapon. I think that's a good take.
We'll pass it along here because I'm getting the sniffles, so I need a second. So go.
Indeed. Then I'm going to take it in a more straightforward killer direction, and I'm going to put forward Alfred Dravis from Mad Father.
I really thought you were going to say Albert Wesker when you started there.
But I also thought that. I don't know who this person is.
Right, so I mentioned a while back in our boss draft list, but sociopaths are scary. They're unpredictable, they don't think or feel like normal people, and they'll justify doing horrible things to further their own selfish ends, and Alfred Dravis is no exception. He's the titular character of the game and father to game protagonist Aya. Alfred is a mad scientist. More specifically, he's a mad scientist with an obsession with preserving beauty by killing people and turning them into dolls. As a child, he tortured and killed small animals, earning him a stern lecture from his mother. Displeased, the young Alfred killed his mother with a knife, and it was here that he developed his obsession with the beauty of dead faces, noting how beautiful his mother's was. He eventually met a woman named Monica Dravis and attempted to kill her, but for some reason he instead elected not to, and Monica fell madly in love with him. The two were eventually wed and had a daughter, Aya. He also spared his now medical assistant, Maria, after noting that she had medical expertise that he could make use of. He also began an extramarital affair with Maria, another common hallmark for sociopaths. Alfred valued Aya above all else, and after noticing that she was beginning to develop her own sociopathic tendencies, took it upon himself to teach her right and wrong in the hopes that she didn't turn out like him. However, when it became known that his own wife was actively encouraging Aya's sociopathy, Alfred decided that he would kill Aya and turn her into a doll, forever preserving her innocence and beauty. Monica found out about Alfred's plans and threatened to take Aya and leave if he persisted. He took this about as well as his mother's lecture and resolved the situation in pretty much the same way without a second thought. This murder sparks the events of the game, which ultimately comes to a head with Alfred chasing Aya through the mansion with a chainsaw on a mission to preserve his daughter and make her the prettiest doll in his collection. He's a sociopath on a rampage, and there's nothing he won't do and nobody he won't kill to achieve his twisted ends.
This sounds somewhat similar, if anyone has seen it. Damn it, I'm blanking out the name. There was an anime where there is a doctor who is not in love with the main character, but he's in love with her eyes. He's got this crazy obsession with eyes. And, wish I could remember the name, but it originally was a game. And he kind of acts similarly, although he gets sort of killed off in the beginning, sort of not. Spoiler alert. I can't remember the name of the series. It's not really a spoiler if I can't remember. But it sounds somewhat similar to that.
Wouldn't killing her with a chainsaw make it harder to preserve her body?
Look, I never said he was a smart mad scientist, just that he was a mad scientist. I mean, the game also... Well, it's also, like, the game gives about as much insight onto how he turns people into dolls as how Naruto does how Sasori makes human puppets. Like, it's left extremely vague, and a lot is left to the imagination.
Fair.
I mean, it is kind of scary, though. I would not want to be turned into a doll.
No. And, like, especially not by your own father. I feel like that adds an extra layer of fucked up to the whole thing.
And Dad's gone crazy, Kent. Can't wait to hear about this one during the family reunion.
At least Chucky will have a good friend.
It's scary. I think this is our first one with the chainsaw, which is a kind of a somewhat underappreciated weapon in horror. The only other one I can think of is Texas Chainsaw.
Mm-hmm. I think Jason used one at one point.
The hillbilly in Dead by Daylight, who's based on Bubba.
Ah, yes. Yes, but moving swiftly along, I'm going to throw it back to monsters, and this one, it is technically a game based on a movie, but the creature in question is exclusive to this game and found nowhere else. I am putting forward the Trudons from Telltale's Jurassic Park the game.
What is it?
Oh my god!
Oh, God. What the fuck is wrong with their eyes?
Yeah, so you know a creature is creepy when the only thing you see of it at first is the tapetum lucidum of its eyes reflecting light back at you. The Trudons were created by InGen geneticist Dr. Laura Sorkin from pure, non-augmented dinosaur DNA, and upon first glance at what they are and how they behave, John Hammond ordered them terminated, deeming them a threat to his vision for Jurassic Park. But when you're a scientist playing God, you don't fear billionaires, and so Dr. Sorkin faked the Trudons' euthanasia and moved them to quarantine pens instead for further study. Enter the 1999 or 1993 Isla Nublar incident. The aspiring park loses power, and the dinosaurs breach their paddocks and do as their nature dictates, now with humans in the mix. The Trudons were no exception, and their nature proved far more horrifying than any other predator on the island. Their hunting is so efficient and deadly that even the notoriously intelligent velociraptors know to stay the hell away from them. They travel in large groups of up to 10 or more. They're intelligent, like InGen's velociraptor specimens. They're venomous, because of course they are. And the venom causes hallucinations and delusions, later seizures and convulsions, and finally full-body paralysis and brain rot. And the Trudons are smart enough to bite once and then fall back, stalking their prey just out of view as the venom takes its toll before moving in for the meal. But by far, the most horrifying and out-of-pocket thing this abomination of prehistory pulls is their nesting habits. A female Trudon will bite a victim and proceed to stalk it, similar to how she would prey, but instead of eating, once the paralysis sets in, she'll make an opening in the still-alive creature and lay her eggs inside like a spider wasp. The body provides body heat and a free meal to the fresh hatchlings, who then proceed to join their kin and perpetuate this nightmare fuel of a cycle. The only good thing about these Trudons is that they were most likely wiped out during InGen's 1994 cleanup operations following the incident. We Norse don't have a god of meteors, but in the case of these nasty little buggers, I'll whisper a prayer of thanks to whichever one whipped the cosmic curveball that took these things off the census in the first place.
I was gonna say with the egg thing, but you already said it with the spider wasp. That sounded exactly like how they do it. Just laying the egg inside their still alive victim. That's disturbing.
Yeah, and a lot of what you see, I think, before the chapter where these things actually show up is just those, like, bulbous eyes reflecting light back at the, like, whatever light source you happen to be holding.
Great, I hate it.
I think it's really creative, the, like, reflecting light through eyes, considering our eyes register light and everything. I think that's a really, neat element.
Yeah, I think that actually serves as one of their big foils in the game, because while that trait gives them exceptional vision in the dark, bright light is actually enough to deter them, and that's a strategy you have to employ a couple of times.
That makes sense. Are these things real, or are they just for the game?
So there is actually a dinosaur called a Troodon, but as is often the case with Jurassic Park and real archaeological finds, they look nothing like this.
This game's also older too, right? This is from the
early 2000s, I think.
Yeah, so this is back before we started thinking they had feathers.
But yeah, an actual Troodon. Let me see. Yeah, I mean, but basically it looks like just a normal raptor-looking theropod. So quills and feathers all down, and little wing feathers on stubby little arms.
I can't help but look at these eyes, man. They're so hypnotic.
Yeah, hypnotic and unsettling.
I really like them. They're really neat.
Yeah, honestly, it's a really good... you know what? This is why anglerfish work. This is why This is exactly why.
Yeah, with that, I yield back.
We got a good mix of things so far, but I feel like we're kind of missing a staple in horror. You can kind of agree with me, because I feel like you should agree with me here. We don't have any ghosts. There's not one ghost on this list so far. So you know what? We're gonna go with the ghost from Fatal Frame 3, the boss ghost. This is Reika Kuze, I'm pretty sure.
Reika. In my dreams,
Why did that handmaiden guide a man such as you to the Chamber of Thorns? Do not enter the Chamber of Thorns. You must not disturb the priestess who lies asleep.
Kuze. Can't remember how they pronounce it in the game. She is known as the Tattooed Priestess, and if you know Fatal Frame, there was a ritual, it went wrong. Always how it goes in Fatal Frame. This one specifically, this woman, Reika, she was supposed to be tattooed, which was supposed to take the pain of all the people in the manor, I think is what it was. I can't remember the specifics of it. And again, I don't remember the full story of 3, because it's been a year now since I've played it. But it failed. She became a ghost, killed everyone, and in it she created the curse and the Manor of Sleep. which is a dream world that infects the main characters and other people, and they slowly have tattoos consume their body. And if the tattoos progress to a certain point, they die, and the manner in which they die is they kind of just leave behind a pile of ash as if they were burned or like turned into a shadow. It is very slow, it is very painful, and it's very debilitating. You see one of the other characters before they die, they're in the hospital, they can't move, but they're sharing, like, they're going to the same dream world. Like, everyone's going to the manor sleep, which is slightly annoying because it's a little disappointing. It is made up of the two previous mansions and a little bit of its own. The fact that Reika is just passively passing so long because she is mad. I think it was she fell in love with someone and they died before the ceremony was completed correctly, and she wasn't supposed to be in love with anyone, and that's what caused the curse to go into effect. I can't fully remember. But she is dangerous. She, out of all the bosses, she's the only one that, like, she will actually show up during the, like, before the end game. The other ones don't really show up until the end. You'll see some, like, flashbacks of them, but Reika will actively show up and attack you. She doesn't one-hit KO you, but you can't do anything about her until the final fight. So if she shows up, you just gotta run. She's a classic slow-walking ghost. Will go through doors and everything. If you see her, if she doesn't kill you in the dream, the curse is gonna get you.
Very much a pursuer.
Plus her design is just that classic Japanese, like, grudge, the ring kind of look with the...
Yeah, it's got a very Sadaka look, or the spirit in Dead by Daylight.
Exactly. I'll tell you this, in most media that I've seen, Japanese ghosts are more terrifying than most other ghosts I've seen.
I don't know, she'd be pretty appealing if she wasn't trying to kill you.
I think that was part of the problem. But yes, Reika, I just wanted to give a little shout out to Fatal Frame too, honestly. Because I appreciate those games.
Fatal Frame is a great series.
It is what got me more tolerant for horror. Because I played the first one. First one I find the scariest out of all of them. 3 is probably the second one because I've only played the first 3 so far. So, little shout out to my origin. Peter, take it along. I've covered ghosts and zombies now, we're good.
Well, you did a ghost. How about a man who's worse than a ghost?
How can it be worse than a ghost?
Well, Darth Nihilus from Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2.
Do you feel it is a... You are the darkness in which all life dies, my lord. All life exists to feed your power. And my life is yours. I beg you, please, let me die. Yes, this disturbance echoes through the Force. I can follow it to its source and bring it to you. I will leave at once, my lord.
He's a wound in the Force, more presence than flesh. In his wake, life dies, sacrificing itself to his hunger. The man who is now known as Nihilus, lost everything during the Galactic Republic's war against the Mandalorian Neo-Crusaders. He survived the aftermath activation of a weapon of mass destruction known as the Mass Shadow Generator, a superweapon that during the war's final battle at the planet of Malachor 5 surrounded the planet in a destructive spatial phenomenon known as a mass shadow. Experiencing the shadow obliterated almost everything on and around the planet, even in space around it. It made Nihilus crave Force energy. The affliction painfully ravaged his body, while rendering him a wound in the very Force itself. He found a seeker of these, the former Jedi Kreia, who became the Dark Lord Darth, and told him that he could teach her to feed, and she told him that she could teach him to feed his endless hunger. He accepted, and was offered an apprenticeship under the Treyas Academy on Malachor 5, where he, over time, became one of the 3 concurrent Dark Lords of the Sith. Together they formed the Triumvirate, Kreia, Sion, and Nihilus. The former chose individual titles for themselves, Nihilus becoming known as the Lord of Hunger. Eventually overpowered by powering their master, Sion defeated Treya while Nihilus sapped her energy. The two then combined power to sever her connection to the Force itself and sent her into exile. Nihilus's affliction developed to the point where the Dark Lord was forced to call upon the dark side of the Force to encase his spirit within his very mask and armor to stay alive. More spirit than actual physical body at this point. He and Sion then began a Jedi purge, causing the almost complete extinction of the Jedi Order. His connection of death continued well after his body had died, however, being defeated by the Jedi Exile, another wound in the Force, the only being considered strong enough at the time that could defeat him. The Sith Lord's armor maintained his spirit, and a collection collected for burial in the Sith homeworld of Korriban, where his soul could still be contacted within a holocron of his own creation, surviving even his own death. As his master would describe him as, there is no strength in the hunger he possesses, and the will behind his power is a primal thing, and it devours as he devours others. His mere presence kills all around him. Slowly feeding him, he is already dead. It is already a question of how many he kills before he falls. He cares nothing for the Sith, or its teachings, or the Jedi, and when the Jedi are dead, he will feed on the galaxy, the Republic, and eventually consume the Sith as well. You know you're beyond evil when the Sith consider themselves are afraid of you. Nihilus's voice himself isn't human, nor alien, more like twisted souls trying to communicate, being described almost demonically. Star Wars has attempted horror a few times, but nothing compares to Nihilus, a being that shed any sense of his humanity, just an endless, dark hunger.
I remember seeing this guy some years ago. He was, I guess when he first hit the scene, or when Star Wars really started becoming more popular again. I don't know, but I just remember seeing his design. I had no idea who he was. And I don't know, the mask is sick. It kind of reminds me of Red X from Teen Titans.
Yeah, I was just thinking that.
Yeah, it's got a few inspirations, I think.
No, I do have to say, I did like Nihilus in KOTOR 2. However, his boss fight was kind of just...
Well, we ain't gonna talk about the gameplay of an RPG. I'm just talking with him like, if he was like a horror character in a horror game, he would be terrifying. Just this empty man. He used to be a man, just a normal man who got hit by a super weapon and became nothing. He's not a body, he's a creature, basically. Even the Sith themselves, for everything wrong with them, every monstrous thing the Sith have done, they fear him. He will eventually consume them.
But that's how it is with most of these guys who are normal killers, right? Like, Act 1 is always, I was once a man.
Oh, sure, but like, the thing with Nihilus is you don't know anything about when he was a human. You know, compared to, like, Blight, right? My Blight pick. Talbot Grimes, he's really described, you find out about his human self. There's nothing known about Nihilus. He's empty, he's hollow. You just don't know who he was, and that's kind of terrifying in its own right. Was he a good person? Was he a bad person? We don't know.
Could have just been a normal businessman.
Could have been, or he could have been a monster, he could have been a mass serial killer. We have no clue who he was. And now he is nothing. He is nothing.
We don't know who he was, only what he is.
He is now just this empty void that hungers. He is just hunger incarnate. It's kind of terrifying when you really think about it. I brought it up because I remembered reading it. He is inspired by No Face.
Oh, okay. I see it.
Oh, okay, yeah. Huh. Interesting. I guess
if you're gonna draw inspiration from anywhere, a Miyazaki movie is a pretty damn good place to do it.
it also kind of fits because No Face, at least in the context of like the one scene, was just eating everything relentlessly just to eat because he can't taste anything.
Well, he was possessed, because he was possessed by greed in that moment.
Well, the point is, he was still just eating to eat. That's basically what Nihilus is. He just eats to eat.
Yeah, and that's
the endless hunger who will consume the Jedi, the Sith, the Republic, the galaxy, everything. It's kind of he's just a living black hole practically.
It makes sense. I would not have figured No Face for the inspiration for that, but it makes sense.
I pass on the torch.
Moving right along.
So I have to go back to old classics and introduce Resident Evil's very own xenomorph boss itself, Verdugo. This enemy is a persistent monstrosity that you have to use the nitroglycerine in the lab and defreeze this motherfucker before you can even kill him.
They have a very sick design.
I have not played the Resident Evil games, but he's pretty cool looking.
I completely forgot this guy existed, I'm gonna be honest.
That tail makes him look like undead Jura.
I really see the Xenomorph comparison.
Oh yeah, it wears the Xenomorph comparison on its sleeve.
Looks sick though.
Like, I
He will
remember
go into the
being-
ceilings and drop down that tail on you, causing a quick time event just to avoid major damage.
I was gonna say, I think I was there when I was watching Mordred. I think you streamed playing this game, didn't you?
I don't know where it's Resident Evil from.
Because I think I remember seeing you have to deal with it in the hallway.
Either way, yeah, I'm
The remake of Resident Evil 4 to be exact.
I remember seeing her fight it, but I've never personally fought it myself.
yeah, like even like a brightly lit room, like a football field across, with this thing on the other side. Fuck
It was
bumping
in
into
the
this in real
original
life.
game too, where it was even harder of a fight. But in the original, you're stuck in place when aiming.
That sucks.
Yeah, that was. I mean, it came out for the GameCube. That's how old Resident Evil 4 is. And those that don't know, shooters on the GameCube were not the best.
GameCube, Wii, and PS2.
Well, I'm saying GameCube because it's the oldest. I think it actually predates the PS2 by a little bit. I might be wrong on that.
90% sure it jump scared me at one point. That's all I have to say really. Not much more info that I know of on it. So Yeti Watcher got.
For this one, I have a bit of an interesting pick. So, imagine this scenario. You are playing, just an electrician. You're down on your luck. Your job just kind of sucks, and you just got home from a war. You get to this old building being decommissioned. A place known as the neighborhood. It is a old studio. Yep, it is an old studio. Known for, it's puppets. Known for puppet work. Something akin to Sesame Street. Throughout your adventure, throughout the neighborhood, you meet some quirky characters who are a little bit aggressive towards you. So, throughout these characters, you get various items to deal with them. But these characters aren't necessarily evil. However, in the deep dark of the good old neighborhood, there lives the unfriendly neighbors.
You're supposed to be.
In the history of the game of My Friendly Neighborhood, during this war that had happened, the neighbors were forbidden from watching TV due to the wartime events going on. So, some of the neighbors decided to not listen to the producers and watch the TV anyways. At first, they found, what you normally expect on TV. Documentaries, cartoons, movies playing. But then some of these neighbors got to the wartime videos that were being displayed. Sort of like how in the US the Vietnam War was displayed for all to see, which was absolutely horrific. Which led to some unfortunate things happening to the neighbors, which made them a bit one would say unfriendly neighbors.
Interesting.
I'm not exactly sure what I'm looking at here.
So, in My Friendly Neighborhood, you meet a colorful cast of characters known as the neighbors. However, the unfriendly neighbors were essentially corrupted by these wartime videos, becoming aggressive, all around hateful, and to the point murderous. The regular neighbors are just super excited to see people.
Meanwhile, it looks like the unfriendlies took "Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared" and dialed it up to 11.
Oh, the scariest part of the unfriendly neighbors, if I can find the picture, is The reason why I say the unfriendly neighbors instead of like a specific neighbor is because it doesn't really have a name. There's an unfriendly neighbor you find who, if I can find a picture of it, who's just a conglomerate of a bunch of them that have patched themselves into one entity. That is the patchwork unfriendly neighbor.
Oh, that is.
A little bit of fire will take care of it.
Yeah, maybe more than a little bit, please.
Just a lot of fire?
The difference between the unfriendly neighbors and the friendly neighbors, throughout the most of the game, it's more of like an emotional journey of your character learning how to get over certain things that happened to him in his life, as well as him trying to help the neighborhood get over some things that they've had to deal with in their lives and trying to help them be better, help them move on past some horrific events they've been through. And then you get to the unfriendly neighborhood, which is just completely different. Like, the unfriendly neighborhood is when you get introduced to having a flashlight in the game, because the game has been entirely lit up till this point. Like, you're probably about a little over halfway by the time you get to this point. Which, you don't stay there long, thankfully. It's just one part of the game, which, I'm gonna be honest, it's fucking awful to be in this area.
And all the occupants of the city are puppets?
Yes. Well, it's a radio tower, like a broadcast station, where all the guys live there.
Okay, so these are like sets.
Yes.
It's an interesting take.
It's definitely different. Alright, well, it doesn't seem like anyone has anything else to add. So that being said, I think we're going to do some honorable mentions here. Not sure if we'll repeat the subtopic. If we don't, there will be no honorable mentions, but if I don't feel like it, I don't know. Regardless, if there were honorable mentions, we're back for them.
Those were good if they existed.
If they were there, yes.
Best of the best.
Eddie, would you like to finish off your list, please?
Absolutely. For this one, I'm going to choose a bit of a more, let's just say a bit of a more futuristic topic, and it's a little bit on the grotesque side. So, imagine you're playing as an engineer in the good old year of 20XX. I don't remember the year this game takes place. You've been called to fix an old, derelict ship known as the Ishimura, a planet cracker. I am, of course, talking about the Necromorphs from Dead Space.
Gotta trust me, okay? Listen, you're in terrible danger.
If you can hear me, run! Run!
To be honest, I'm surprised it took this long for anyone to pick them.
And while I could have just picked one specific variant of the Necromorphs, they are so broad and diverse that I couldn't just pick one Necromorph type. I had to pick the Necromorphs as a whole. Because the Necromorphs, as they are as creatures, they're essentially zombies, for the most part. The Necromorphs themselves aren't as bad to deal with for your character, Isaac Clarke. For one, your character's wife was a doctor, and you are an engineer. So from what I could tell, the idea of the fact... Oh yeah, by the way, I should probably mention, the only way to really kill these things is to remove their limbs or burn them.
Yeah, you kind of gotta completely and literally stomp them out.
Yeah, and so there are some horrific designs for these guys, very unsettling, and definitely not for the faint of heart. Because in Dead Space 2, in Dead Space 2 you get introduced to things like this, which are children, and then you get introduced to infants that explode and things like that. Like, there are some grotesque creatures that come out of the Dead Space universe, which is why I couldn't just pick just one creature from them. The Necromorphs as a whole come from this thing called the Marker, which drove people insane and caused them to start mutating. Now, originally, you could only mutate into a Necromorph if you saw the Marker. However, the Necromorphs then decided to be more efficient and created a creature, if I can find the image, where is it at? Of a creature that turns people into the Necromorphs via an implant. Of all the images of Necromorphs, and that one's not one of them. I'm gonna keep talking while I'm looking for this thing, apparently. Leading to you discovering that the Necromorphs can create more of themselves using things like corpses, via either the morgue or ones that they create via living people. There it is. Which is spread via these things. Which I had to go look for. It's the infector. What they do is essentially latch onto a host, implant a needle into their forehead, and then they start rapidly and violently changing into a necromorph. And it's kind of like a slot machine. Which one it turns into, nobody knows.
This sounds like such a classy way to get to know somebody.
And then you have the fucking skulls that will literally cut your head off and take over your body.
I was gonna say, the fact that it's your forehead, usually it's like the spine or something, but the forehead, this just seems so much worse.
It gets worse from there because, funny story, there is 2 necromorphs that you encounter in the entirety of the game series who are unkillable, being 2 different variations of the Regenerator, and this one was slightly a bit of an honorable mention, but still part of the necromorphs. It was a little bit funny to me because you meet them both in the 3rd game, because the first one you meet again, Isaac picks up space debris in a ship, and it turns out to have one of them in it. In the second one, in a twist of dramatic fate and irony, the one from the first game, which you jettisoned out of an escape pod, crash lands 40 feet in front of you and comes out.
How does that work?
Like, you were on a derelict ice planet hundreds of light years away from where you launched this thing 12 years prior.
In all the planets and all the solar systems and all the universe, she walked into mine.
That just seems like some bad writing to me.
It was, but at the same time, it was really goddamn funny. Which led to you having to deal with both of them at the same time. I do not remember if you were actually able to kill them or if you jettisoned them again.
I could not say. I have not played the Dead Space games yet, which is why I didn't want to select them. I like choosing things from things I've played.
I did, so I swapped out playing with a bunch of the guys that I was in Pensacola with. We intentionally waited for a weekend where we didn't really have anything coming up in the next few days. We waited until it was midnight, pitch fucking black. We went out to the quad in the middle of all of our barracks rooms, turned the lights off, and started playing. Oh, it was fun and horrifying in equal measure.
They have a funny little feature where if you shoot them and you miss one of their limbs, sometimes they'll act like you hit one of the limbs and flop backwards.
The AI is pretty impressive for its time.
They essentially like to play dead, and then when you get close to them, they jump back up again.
Which is why you always gotta stomp them out.
Oh, it's why I shoot them from a distance first to make sure they are actually dead, and then I stomp them.
We must pass it along.
Mordred.
So for my last, I'll be taking us to both Old and New Tristram and take you into hell as well. Look at the Lord of Terror himself and former primeval Diablo.
Our long war ends today. Imperious.
Satan, pretty much.
Yeah, that's I get about the same level of unease from that as I do from the avatar of Mehrunes Dagon from Oblivion.
Is it just based off devil imagery?
It might as well be. It's basically if Machamp and Satan had a baby.
I haven't played the Diablo game. I played a little bit of 3, but like 10 minutes of it, so I wouldn't really say I played it. I know a lot of people really like 2. 3 was mixed, but seems to have good reception now. And people hate 4 because of all the microtransactions and stuff. I've been very curious about the series because 2 and 3 both sounded good. My brother loved 3.
I love 3.
Yeti loves 3. I really wouldn't mind giving this a chance if I get to. I wouldn't mind doing how like I don't remember what normal boots did like many years ago. They had like basically a hardcore core mode of it.
And Diablo's one of those ones that I never actually got into.
And like I said, I've only played 3 for like 10 minutes, so I haven't really either.
Diablo had survived 2 whole games of what should have killed him and was sealed away after 2 when King Leoric's son used his body as a tomb for Diablo by jamming the Soul Stone into his forehead.
Sounds about right.
Joke's on them. Everybody knows the only way to defeat the devil is in a fiddle contest.
It kind of makes me want to put the devil from Guitar Hero in my last entry.
Oh, Lou was his name?
Yeah, Lou. I couldn't remember. Shout out to Lou.
Come to find out, Charlie Daniels actually didn't like that level in the game.
Diablo only came back because the witch Adria, who he had a daughter with in the prince's body, had turned their daughter into the perfect vessel by honing her powers and filling the Black Soul Stone the souls of the other lords of hell, only to turn on the party and turn Leah, the favorite sister character of the game, into the literal fucking devil.
Talking about Diablo makes me really want to play Diablo, because it's basically D&D.
You go into literal heaven to stop his goal of taking over heaven and by extension life itself. And what hurts most is after you kill him in a 2-part boss fight, he is thrown from heaven where he disintegrates, leaving Leah's body to plummet.
Rest in peace, Leah, probably. She did not deserve it, from what it sounds like.
Put it right up there with FF7 and games who give characters you like the shaft by the end of it.
Spoilers.
The game's like almost 30 years old.
Okay, say that to all the 8-year-olds who aren't old enough to know it even exists yet.
I doubt that.
You do get to kill Adria in the Reaper of Souls expansion at least, but still.
'Tis a hollow victory at that point.
Yeah.
In the wise words of Monty Python, 'tis but a flesh wound.
It had been a literal week since Diablo died and all hell broke loose. Again.
Yeah, kind of hard to step to the literal devil, isn't it?
I do really want to play Diablo 2 at some point. If I can get a server going for it, I would do it.
And the angel governing death took the Black Soul Stone and Diablo's power.
Oh, wasn't that, what's his name? Asriel? Asriel.
I was gonna say, in Judeo-Christian lore, that's the angel of death's name.
I'm pretty sure it was Asriel. I may be wrong, but I think it was Asriel.
Malthael.
I'm not too familiar with Diablo lore. I just know Asriel is in the game. He's like the main angel.
And especially in angels' names, that Aya, like the A-E-L at the end of their name, I think is Hebrew for of God. So whatever Malth means, it's that of God.
Diablo could be terrifying to someone that is a devout religious nut. To me, not very scary, but he is cool. He's definitely cool.
I was gonna say that. Like, my religion actively pisses off Christians. Like, this does nothing for me.
But he's still cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I have on him, so Peter Buddy, how will you end your list?
Well, I'm glad you asked. Because I think I've had a few people. Let's have a monster. Well, to be fair, they're not like... I don't know. Well, you'll see. The Banshees from Mass Effect 3.
Later.
Banshees are a synthetic organic creature derived from the Asari species, mutated with Reaper technology. Frighteningly intelligent, Banshees are advanced pressure units found leading Reaper strike forces during the invasion of the galaxy. The Reapers create them specifically from Asari with active or latent predispositions to becoming Ardot-Yachi. Basically, they're sex vampire aliens. When they sex with people, they can overload your nervous system and kill you. So, it's a rare neurological condition the Asari species have that enhances their biotic power while causing immense death to anyone they mate with. Lumbering as though they're in constant pain, the Banshees are surprisingly durable opponents. They have devastating biotics, able to hurl lethal balls of energy and create shockwaves as they regenerate. What the Alliance military finds most disturbing about the Banshee's ability is to spawn her own warp field and seemingly teleport during combat. Although their whales have no apparent physiological effects, their psychological impact is undeniable, screeching across the battlefield, spreading terror across the battlefield. When Banshees die, their Ardot-Yachi genetic twists against them, causing a biotic implosion to ensure they evade capture, literally killing themselves to avoid the enemy getting a hold of them. The Banshee's name, of course, inspired by the female fairy or spirit in Irish folklore, whose wails are said to become an omen of death. Similar creatures appear in Scottish, Welsh, and Norse stories. An appropriate inspiration giving the horrifying noise these creatures make of the game. Of all aliens of the trilogy to be turned into servants of the Reapers, the Banshee are the most terrifying, turning the often described beautiful Asari species into monsters with twisted, slender proportions. The Reapers weaponizing even the most powerful and biotic, basically magic, species in the galaxy against their enemies. In the words of Bastila Shan from Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 1, what greater weapon is there than turn into an enemy to your own cause, to use their own knowledge against them? And that's what the Reapers do. In Mass Effect, they turn your very own people against you into generic monsters, creatures designed to kill you.
It's like a succubus, only not nearly as conventionally attractive.
So I played the multiplayer back in the day for Mass Effect 3, and these things were like kind of like the because it was kind of a wave-based system. And at the
horde survival multiplayer.
Yeah, I couldn't remember the term, but at the end of each wave, there'd be like a boss of some sort, and the Banshee was a common one.
Yep, if you look at one of the images there, the one that's got the red lighting, that's the one-shot kill. They grab you and just murder you. They are vicious and terrifying. They give everyone the multiplayer PTSD.
Yes, with all the respect where it is due, this is one Demon Girl tag that I will not be subscribing to. Thank you and good night.
And for as lanky, for the most part they look, aside for their like engorged belly, they're pretty tanky. Like they can take hits very well.
They are monstrous, to put it under one word. It also doesn't help that they originally come from the like deformed, like unwanted version of the species where they have this genetic predisposition to killing their mates. Like imagine a species that could breed with humans or any other alien, and you've got this like unwanted variants which have to live in a monastery, and these creatures will just kill you if you have sex with them, which is really fucked up for a species. Is like conventionally very attractive.
I'll tell you this, they have great dental. Look how straight those teeth are.
Dude, for real.
They're not clean, but they're straight.
Like, whoever provides their plan, like, can they come over to my workplace? Maybe give a seminar?
Yeah, well, that's my monster of the hour.
It's nice to see a Banshee, although a different one, pop up on the list. I think Banshees are kind of underappreciated in today's media.
Yeah, well, these ones give me PTSD, so woohoo!
So I'm kind of glad I don't see them anymore.
But right now, what time is it? Oh yes, it's Doc o'clock. What you got?
Well, you know what? Mordred took the more popular Silent Hill antagonist. I'm going to pick one who kind of plays it from the background. I'm going to go from Silent Hill 3's, and he pops up in some of the others, but he's mostly from 3, Valtiel.
Is this a dream? It's gotta be. Not even a kid could believe in this.
he may look like he's just standing in the context of that image. He's actually hanging on a wall.
And now we have context.
Yes. So Valtiel, in Silent Hill 3, he doesn't really interact with the player character too much. You mostly just see him kind of hanging around, doing things, generally torturing something. It's not you. What Valtiel's role in the game is very subtle until towards the end of the game. What he does is he is basically God's assistant. He is there to help God, and throughout the story, the character you play as, Heather Mason, is the original child of God, but there's a whole story thing. I'm not going to go into it. But now they're trying to birth God again because the first time failed, and Valtiel is basically there to make sure that it happens this time. So while he's not necessarily there to protect you, because he just wants the baby, he wants God to be born. He wants to make sure that you are safe until that moment is completed. So he's on your side until the job is done, and that's why you see him like torturing the stuff on the side, basically like do not interfere kind of thing. And and when you die in the game, Valtiel will take your corpse. He'll like drag you off to basically take God's baby from within you. So again, he may not directly interfere with you, but if he has to, he will. And I think that makes it terrifying. And by the end of the game, there's one little thing I want to add to this first. Yes. Towards the end of the game, the person, like the main antagonist character, I don't know if you kill them. I haven't gotten to that part yet, but I know how it ends. They, for one reason or another, you were able to stop the ritual, and Valtiel basically uses them as the surrogate for God's baby. And Valtiel is the one that guarantees that it happens. Like he's like, all right, you're the one we're gonna use now. You're not the one we wanted, but we got to do something because this is gonna fail otherwise. And then basically creates God, and you kill their God. You can say what you're gonna say.
There's always something unsettling about an alliance of necessity with a zealot.
That's basically. I mean, Valtiel is an angel. That's the crazy thing. Like,
yeah, and there is nothing more zealous than an angel.
And I love the Silent Hill's idea of an angel, like this demonic, like nothing more demonic looking. It is flesh. It is bloodied. It is rusty. It is disgusting. It is actively committing torture. Most of the time, you see it.
There's a good reason they start all conversations with mortals with "Be not afraid." Like angels are divine monsters.
And Valtiel, it's hard to see, but in the image, if you look on his shoulder, he has carvings on his shoulders.
I was wondering what those were.
I forget what they mean exactly, but I think they're. It said something on the wiki that I was looking at. But I think they're basically symbols for their god, which their god's name is the Incubus. So take with that what you will.
I take it to mean similar to the Banshees, just different physiology.
Kind of. It's think of your classic goat head on like a regular angel body. Also makes sense. Yes, Cheryl Mason was the original girl from Silent Hill 1, who is basically the Heather. Cheryl is
like
Heather.
Baphomet.
Kind of, yeah, actually. That's actually it's basically about Baphomet, however it's supposed to be said.
No, yeah, you had it, Baphomet.
Yeah, well, that's basically what their god ends up being. It changes a little bit based on the ending. Sometimes it's like this being of light or whatever. But yeah, I just think the idea of I personally find Valtiel a little more intimidating than Pyramid Head, but I also find them just as interesting as Pyramid Head.
Definitely a cool case.
I want to end off with something Saws, so just don't get in Valtiel's way. That's basically what it comes down to.
Sounds sensible.
Well, sensible the end of this list. It doesn't make sense, but I said it anyway. You may go now. That was my sensible thing was supposed to be your cue for you to go. That's what I was trying to do.
Very good. Then, to anyone here or viewing later that has ever seen Jason X, I pose this Q&A. What's scarier than a monster brought back through the horrors of futuristic science?
Monster in space.
A monster brought back by the horrors of futuristic science that's also augmented with human DNA, of course. Now, what if that monster was a dinosaur? I present to you Kebblerai from Dino Crisis 3.
We're going home. What the?
Damn it! We're not gonna make it with that thing on the shuttle.
I'm gonna teach that persistent creature a final lesson.
Hey, genetic freak. You're not on the boarding list. So get off the boat.
Oh my god, he's got 3 heads.
So, when the human crew aboard the Ozymandias started dropping like flies due to radiation poisoning in the year 2248, the ship's captain instructed its AI overseer, Mother 248, to create human clones to carry out the ship's colonization mission. When it saw that the cloned humans were still susceptible to radiation, Mother took it upon itself to augment the clones with DNA from other animals, eventually finding that dinosaurs were the most resistant. The result were several species released for testing and study within the confines of the Ozymandias, and among all of them, the Kebblerai stands out as particularly scary owing to its unique physiology. It's the adult stage of the larval regal monsters. The Kebblerai was used with Giganotosaurus DNA as its base. After several mutations that come from its metamorphosis into adulthood, it stands as a massive abomination of science with multiple heads and multiple tails, and an appetite that demands the main cast be rendered past tense to maintain its energy. And on the topic of energy, Kebblerai can also generate and manipulate bioelectricity to attack its prey, because of course it can. And as shown in the game, it can generate additional heads and presumably other appendages when it's subjected to sufficient physical trauma to better its chances of survival. While the game does present the player with weapons and strategy options fit to get rid of this thing, I personally believe that jettisoning it out of the airlock would be the best bet, or at least I would if I wasn't sure this fucking thing could survive in space.
How big is this thing?
Funny you should ask. It is about this big.
The image is small, but the dino is big.
Very much so.
The heads kind of look like Venom to me.
They do in that picture.
And they do have a larval form that's about the size of a Nile crocodile. When these things are born, they're abominations, but then when they get older, it just gets so much worse. Yeah, eventually that AI goes rogue, like forgets its main purpose, and just starts experimenting to create the ultimate life form, and this is about as close as it gets.
Why does that sound like the plot Ectoprimal?
I feel like I would see these things in some sort of creature capture game.
Yeah, dude, the new Monster Hunter looks great.
It kind of does look like a 2-headed Lavasioth.
Dude, a multi-headed monster in general would be good. They kind of bait and switch this with Macarcos.
This reminds me a bit of Exoprimal, which I know that Exoprimal 100% was most likely a Dino Crisis game before it became Exoprimal.
Yeah. But that's specifically DC's 1 and 2 are like the games that everybody wants Capcom to remaster. It's the 2 games that Capcom seems to have no interest in doing anything with.
Which is weird because the OSTs are on both the OSTs are on Steam right now, which is weird.
Yeah. Also, funny story about Dino Crisis. If you remember the Capcom polls recently, Dino Crisis was like damn near at the top of the leaderboards for most of them, except for the ones they took Dino Crisis off the list. In which case, a lot of people chose other and said Dino Crisis. Because they got tired of people talking about Dino Crisis, so they tried to say, don't talk about Dino Crisis. Then people kept talking about Dino Crisis.
You know how to get them to stop, companies? Just do the thing people want. Crazy.
I think we just made a horror story for companies there, right there. Listening
Good.
to
It's
your
Halloween.
consumers.
Let them be afraid.
From my point of view, the mega corporations are the horror story.
Ah, I see what you did, and I agree.
And I've just ruined any chance of a sponsorship. You're welcome.
I only take sponsors I respect. Rage Shadow Legends reached out to me for a sponsorship, and I didn't even answer.
I played it. It's a mid game.
Yeti, you've ruined my flow. Why does everyone keep doing that when I keep
You're
trying
welcome.
to? So, Deadlock did to me last time, and now Yeti did to me this time. Ugh. We got to do the rankings. I had a whole flow going, and then you ruined it. So I'm just no energy now. Restating for people that are new to the video / new here, not new here, but new to this new ranking system. Top on the sheet, top one is first, bottom one is fourth. The other two are, of course, second and third, respectively. And the scoring system is first place gets 3 points, second gets 2, third place gets 1, last place gets no points. Please try to keep your opinions honest. Do not try to manipulate the scoreboard. That being said, Yeti, you are going to go first because you are first.
Alright, so I choose Fexic for the bottom. The reason for mine being, believe it or not, I was gonna place you highly in the list over the more accurate Wendigos. However, I do have to say that seeing as how the spirit of the draft list is for video game monsters, you did pick Troodons, which originally appeared in the Jurassic Park books.
Did they?
To be fair, though, we don't have a category for books.
I was actually completely unaware that they were in the books.
Yeti is very specific with things like this.
Like the original, like the Michael Crichton ones?
I believe so. It's the same books where they mentioned the aquatic area.
Well, regardless, please continue.
For this one, I will have to say Peter. The main reason being is, one, your explanations felt like they were dragging for a very, very long time.
I mean, I have to explain the DVD ones because it's kind of
No, I know. I know, but you sound like you were reading them from like either a wiki or from a thesaurus, and I was like falling asleep. Then you picked two from the same series.
Sorry, I'll put Subway Surfer gameplay at the bottom next time.
Next up, I'm going to pick Doc.
Alright, I'll take it.
The reason being is because, one, I love Spooky's House of Jump Scares. I love Left 4 Dead. The Barber was not what I was expecting, but I like that one. I also liked your choice of Fatal Frame because I do think Fatal Frame needs a lot more respect than the game series actually gets. Like, it just kind of feels like it's a game series that deserves a lot more respect than what the company gives it.
Which is weird because it got five games and a side game in Spirit Calling on the 3DS, and then they just kind of shelved it. I mean, they're making remakes for 4 and 5 that didn't get released internationally because I think those were Japanese only, which is nice for this. But I would like a little more representation for Fatal Frame.
Yeah, and the only one that I didn't really the reason why this is a difficult one is the only one I really didn't know much about is the Barber and Voltaire.
Yeah, I mean, Voltaire, if comparing lists, it would be a battle between Voltaire and Pyramid Head, and for 90% of people, I know most people will pick Pyramid Head just because he's got the representation behind him.
Yeah, which leads me to my first place pick being Mordred.
It's a good start for Mordred.
Mainly for the reason being, I don't know why I typed Mordred. Anyways, the reason being for Mordred, one, Pyramid Head is a great choice, very iconic character. Gargantuan Leviathan, probably one of the single best mods in a game series, because the amount of work it takes to get something that big to actually function in a game is absolutely insane. The Water Monster from Amnesia was another great pick because I played the original Amnesia and that thing scared the shit out of me every time I tried to get through that area. I'm gonna butcher this thing's name again. Verdugo. I chose that one because I watched Mordred's reaction to it live and it was really funny to me. I know that sounds really biased, but it was really funny.
I mean, that's fair. You can have whatever reason you want for replacing. That's how these rankings work.
For Diablo, I don't know Diablo that well, but I did play through 3. Yeah, I played through 3 with the DLC. So it was kind of a either or between Doc and Mordred for first and second.
Fair enough. I feel like if I took Pyramid Head, I probably would have done it, but I just, as much as I love Pyramid Head, I just don't find him scary, so I didn't want to choose him.
Fair. Mordred, your turn.
Which is fair. So these are such amazing lists, it's hard as hell to rank. But Peter, I do need to apologize, but you were last for me solely because you had 2 from DBD. They're great choices, but the others had different game series, so again I apologize.
Damn, it's a good thing I didn't pick 2 FNAF choices then, like I was going to.
Fexic, my friend, wonderful choices, but I only really know the Wendigos and Alfred, and then the Trudens being from the book.
Yeah, and see, I've read the book. I just don't remember the Trudons. So that's like I got to go back and reread that. Like I've got it on my shelf. I legitimately do not remember them being in it.
How long ago did you read the book?
Most recently was in high school. I haven't actually cracked it open in years.
So that's like 10, 15 years ago now? Somewhere around that range?
And like I remember the Carnotaurs in the Lost World being able to change color like a cuttlefish, but I don't remember the fucking Trudons. Like, how weird is that?
Memory works in weird ways.
Doc, you get silver for me. It's the barber, and well, Valtile may be iconic, but it never really did much other than work in the background and some cutscenes. If you said maybe Walter Sullivan from For the N, definitely higher regard, but the smoker, like I said, love it. Raker is from my Fatal Frame game, and Specimen 8, I love the horror value in its design in an otherwise cute game.
I'll take it. I knew my list is weird, so I'm kind of okay with that. And yeah, Voltail's mostly background. I haven't played Silent Hill 4 yet, so I couldn't really put Walter Sullivan on here. I know he's supposed to be a really well-written character, but I just haven't played it yet, so I can't justify that.
I say all that with all due respect, of course.
No, it's all good. Listen, Silent Hill respects Silent Hill. That's how it goes.
I think I need
Yet
to
he
finish
made
Lost
some
Planet.
really good points with all of his, and 4 out of 5 of his I know really well.
I'm going to take a wild guess and assume that you don't know the Unfriendly Neighborhood.
That would, I mean, to be fair, I didn't know any of yours except for the Necromorphs.
I know them, not the beast.
Oh, I thought you were there when I streamed the game. That's weird.
Yeah, it's possible she forgot. If she was.
Because I thought you commented on him looking like Smeagol.
Well, I was in and out.
Yeah.
Still not bad. Nice first place.
But either way, good choices nonetheless, guys.
Peter, it is your turn.
Alright, Yeti. Gotta be really real with you. I knew none of your list except for Necromorphs, and I don't really like Dead Space. So, straight to the bottom.
I'm just surprised by that, honestly.
I've watched Dead Space. I watched a guy who used to be a Twitch moderator for play it, but I just don't particularly care for it. It's like, it's fine, but I didn't particularly like it. It's just kind of there. So, yeah, just straight up, like, I think a lot of my problem with your list was, like, even if I wasn't familiar with them, a lot of them had, like, the sort of, I don't know, too friendly an art style, like the Wolf Spider, the Unfriendly Neighbors. It didn't really catch me as horror.
I think that's fair.
So, kind of lost points for that.
I think it's one of those situations where unfortunately you have to play it to get it.
I mean, yeah, I get it. There's like a deeper, like, underlying horror. It's just the visuals of it didn't really grab me.
I can kind of get that because Tattletale gives me that what's that, Poppy's Playtime.
Moving up in the list, Doc. I'm sorry, I gotta put you in bronze, but here we are.
Ooh.
So, the thing with yours, I like Specimen 8. I've not seen Spooky since the original, so I was kind of learning new stuff, but it's a really neat design. I'm okay with the Smoker. I'd have gone with the Witch because it's more terrifying than myself. Clayman didn't really do anything for me. It was just kind of there. I was unfamiliar with Fatal Frame, so that's just kind of a blank for me. And again, my knowledge of Silent Hill comes from DVD, so I really only knew Heather herself from 3. So it's just kind of like, yeah, that's a thing, I guess, but it doesn't really mean anything to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah.
Get more familiar with other things.
I'm trying. There's a lot of media, man.
I know.
Alright. Mordred, I really wanted to put you lower, because you did me dirty, and I'm not happy about it. But you had a really cracked list. So, you're up in, there. So Pyramid Head, of course, is really iconic. Probably the most iconic character on this list, to be honest. You've got, obviously, a bit of DBD rep from me there, so you got that going for you. The Subnauticus mission I'd never heard of, but it's really cool. I was familiar with the water monster from Amnesia, and I was 100% on board for that one. Vertigo looks really cool, even if I'm not overly familiar with it yet, but it looks cool. The only one that did me wrong is Diablo, because I'm really not a big Blizzard guy. I like StarCraft, I like Overwatch, but everything else they've done is just kind of to me. But it's like a slightly sour note at the end, but otherwise that was a really cracked list that I have to
That's
put my bias
fair.
aside from you giving me the short end of the stick on the tier list here in my eyes, but, you know,
I mean,
cracked list.
I mean, one of the
I
funniest
do
things.
apologize again.
It's fine.
one of the
I
funniest-
get the logic. I did cut down. Like, as I said, I ended up choosing one less FNAF because I didn't want to be too repetitive. But I have to put my DVD rep in here.
Preference is preference.
Yeah. Which just leaves
I-
one list.
I
The
was
Deer
gonna say-
Stalker is... Oh, the Deer Haunter, sorry, is pretty cool. But the win that really sold me on this being the winner, Wendigo, is from Until Dawn. I really like Until Dawn. They've recently released a DBD spin-off game, the creators of Until Dawn. So, and I also like Until Dawn on its own, so that got big points for me. Alfred was a very out there choice, but when you started explaining it, it kind of sunk with me of like a mad father sort of thing that the design didn't inherently pick me up as horror, but the actual lore of it kind of sunk me more. Tradoons are another one where I don't really like Jurassic Park that much. I've seen the first film, and I've kind of seen bits here and everywhere, but the actual like ideas of the creativity with the whole light reflecting eyes was really interesting. And the Dino Crisis rep was really cool to learn about too. So it was kind of like a case of a lot of the new discoveries were really catching me kind of thing.
I'll tell you this. The only Jurassic Parks you need to watch are the very first one and the first Jurassic World. Those are the only ones I think are good.
I watched the first one and I have a very controversial hot take on it, which I won't get into right now.
Alright, my turn. So, everyone has like one or two things each that I like on your list. I don't think no one's list I'm fully in love with. I'll be straight out the gate with that. So, I'm debating here. I think I'm gonna put Chris at the bottom here. Like, I don't think it's bad, but two dinosaurs, although one's genetically modified, and two deer-like, two things inspired by Wendigos, because the Deer Hunter definitely gives me kind of like it was inspired by that mixed up version of the myth. They just feel similar, and Alfred didn't really do anything for me. He's just kind of a crazy guy with a chainsaw after one specific person. So the Troodons were cool though. I'll be real. I did like the Troodons, and I did like the I don't know, Crisis 3. I can't remember how to say it.
Kebelrise, how I pronounce it. I could be wrong.
I have no idea, but that's I thought they were both cool, but they just weren't strong enough. I think third here, I'm gonna put Yeti here in third. I liked the wolf spider, because I love spiders, so that was like kind of an easy win for me, honestly. So, and I liked the idea of putting horror in daylight, because I mean, if you look at a lot of this game, they're in dark areas or dark games, like they're just visually dark. But the wolf spider can be out in the daylight, like in the picture you said, which it's hard to get scared out in the light, so I kind of liked that. Mama, I didn't find very scary at all. I mean, like, I joked that Furbies are creepy, but that's just kind of, the popular thing. I really didn't find it all that creepy. The unfriendly neighbors, I did find goofy. I didn't find scary. So I appreciate the goofiness. And Necromorphs, those are like the one thing I considered, but I didn't want to pick something I hadn't played. So that was probably like that and the Wolfspire carried it. The Beast, I have no opinion on. I just to me it just looks like a generic ghoul, but I don't think it's bad necessarily. It just wasn't too strong for me. But like I said, everyone had like 2 or 3 things that were strong or weak for me. That being said, second place I am going to give to Peter. Springtrap, like I said, was one of my 2 favorite of the animatronics, I guess you could say, even though technically not an animatronic. One of my favorites between that and Foxy, so I was fine with that. I liked how the Blight looked a lot, and Nihilus too. Same thing with Banshee. Oh, Banshee I have some nostalgia from playing the games on. I think combined, they were pretty nice, but individually I didn't think they're as strong. Plus, I kind of agree with Yeti, you were a bit long-winded with the explanations. I know it was required, but it bored me. I'm gonna be real with you. Like, that being said, design-wise, I really liked the Blight. I thought he was really cool. Honestly, out of everyone's list, just by visual standards, he's probably the coolest thing on this list. And Mordred, I'm giving you my first 4th place, or as Yeti spelled, Mortared. Because we're mortaring people on Halloween. That's a joke, internet, police. But Pyramid Head, like I said, I don't find him scary, but I love the story implications of him, so that kind of carried it for me. Everyone knows I love my deep sea monsters, so even though the Gargantuan is not technically like a real thing, but it is a mod, I was fine with it because you asked me this, and so Undersea Leviathan, that was like, you got me with that one. Water Monster, I actively don't find this one scary at all. This is your weakest pick for me. I think it doesn't scare me in the slightest. Vertigo, he was just cool. I didn't find him scary, but he was very cool, and you could see how it wears the alien inspiration on its sleeve, and I'm fine with that. I like that actively. And Diablo, again, I didn't find scary. I did find really cool. So I thought you kind of got weak towards the end of the skit, but you started off strong. And by weak, I mean they just didn't get as scary. You started off scary and got less scary, is what I'm saying. But either way, the coolness factor still won it for me.
That's fair.
So, Chris, if you'd like to finish this off?
I would, and
Plus, I was going more for nostalgia.
Fair enough.
Yeah, that's kind of why I'm here. But unfortunately, someone does have to get the runner-up, and I do this with no disrespect, but it's going to be Peter this time.
I hate it.
Oof. Your streak has ended, Peter.
Similar to how Doc said, I feel at this point I know more about the Dredge and the Blight than I do about my own parents. And again, you doubled up 2 choices from DBD, and while Darth Nihilus is certainly cool and his explanation very compelling, I'm not entirely sure that Coder is a horror game per se, which I get it. I stepped in the same thing with Future Perfect, but nonetheless, the Banshee was good, and frankly, you sniped Springtrap from me, so that kept you from if there was a level lower than honorable mention, those 2 choices certainly helped you from that. But the Dredge, the Blight, and Nihilus did no favors in my book, unfortunately.
Bring post-it notes next time.
The bronze medal, I'm going to have to give to Yeti. The Beast is certainly unsettling, his visage very terrifying, so that pulled a long way. I have next to no fear of spiders. The unfriendly neighbors, the puppets almost put me in mind of, not quite as creepy as Five Nights at Freddy's animatronics, but still pretty up there. Mama looks like a Furby, which is absolutely fucking demonic. But while my horror game night in Pensacola was fun, the Necromorphs I personally do not find overly scary once you've dismembered a few of them. So while good picks, they are just not what stokes my particular brand of fear. For the silver, I'm going to give that one to Mordred. Pyramid Head, iconic. I'm somewhat of a mind with Doc, where I don't find him particularly terrifying, but I still like what he is, what he represents. Both the Gargantuan and the Amnesia Water Monster play into one of my few unsettling fears, that being, creatures in the depths of the ocean that I can't see and therefore cannot avoid or otherwise deal with. Verdugo basically is Xenomorph, and Xenomorphs are fucking terrifying. And Diablo really is your only outlier because instead of conjure fear, I would instead probably try to solicit him for a deal. Which leaves Doc at the top spot. Valtiel, I was not overly aware of Valtiel until you made him known, but the more I looked, like pictures and otherwise, the more unsettled I was. And I also found out his name means attendant of God.
That makes sense because that's his role in the story, so that makes a lot of sense.
Very much so. Reika, again, more appealing, but given that she does indeed try to do you great harm, that actually makes it slightly more scary, almost like a yandere sort of thing. The Barber Clayman, again, I did draw a comparison to the Oni from Ao Oni, but that was also one of the most unsettling monsters I saw, like, in the games I played when I was a young adult, so that actually carried you further than I think my initial reaction implied. The Smoker was kind of your weak outlier for me because outside of some Junji Ito looking body horror, I personally feel he doesn't bring much to the table. But Specimen 8 put me in a unique mind of a character named the Beast from Over the Garden Wall, who was absolutely fucking terrifying, and that carried him a little further than I think you intended with me.
It's possible he might have had some inspiration from that, because like I said, Spooky's Jump Scare Mansion, whatever, it has a lot of, like, all the monsters are inspired by something, aside from one. Well, actually, even that one's somewhat inspired by something.
Yeah, like, now that, actually, probably around the time this video comes up, I will be doing my annual rewatch of Over the Garden Wall.
Well, that being said, I did tally up the scores. Going in last place, Peter, you had a harsh fall from grace with a total of 3 points. Sorry, bud. Well, don't worry, you're not too far behind fourth place with a solid 4 points. Chris, you didn't do too great here, but you know what? There were a few people that appreciated you.
I can see Peter through my glass bottom boat. What's up, man?
Yeah, imagine, I put you top of my list and this is how I get paid.
Peter, I strike you down because I care.
Sure, just whatever you say, Joey.
It's okay. Right above Chris, with 5 points, is a nice Yeti.
Whoop.
Ooh. A couple points ahead, in second place. I agree, child. It's me. I know, terrifying. Solid 8 points. Good job all around, but not the best list, unfortunately. Taste got better this time. They got you second. That means number 1, Mordred. Congratulations with 10 points. First place, your first win.
Spooky, scary skeletons and shivers down your spine. Shrieking skulls will shock your soul, seal your doom tonight.
Huzzahs and applause and victory fanfare.
That makes Mordred the queen of horror game characters. Killers and monsters and such. I'm just gonna probably call it characters, I don't know. I'll figure it out later. Do you have any... Maybe. No, they're not all antagonists. But do you have any winning words?
I definitely have to restate that everyone had good choices, and final rankings were tough. If I could, I'd do a tie for third, that's how good they were.
I do, everyone's lists were pretty good. Like I said, everyone for me had like 2 good choices, or like some that I would kind of total up to. Everyone was about even on in this for me, which is crazy if you look through our rankings here. They were all, so that just shows how subjective horror can be for people.
Very much so.
That being said, once again, Mordred, congrats on your win. And for now, we are done. So we'll see you guys next time. Remember to like, share, comment, subscribe. Let us know if there's any topics that you'd like to see. Let us know whose draft was the best. And let us know what you would have drafted. I'm pointing at the screen as if you can see it, but you can't see it. So I'll just point. We'll see you guys all next time with another horror video for October.
Later.
Laters.
Death.